Hi, I'm Terry Carruthers, and I'm going to show you how to decoupage a coaster using paper napkin. And another video will be how to decoupage a plate, and another one will be how to decoupage a pumpkin. You can actually decoupage anything using the same techniques, but this one is about a coaster. We're going to decoupage a napkin on a coaster to look something like this, or this cute little, what do you call them? Okay. Now first, to cover a few things that you're going to need, all relatively inexpensive. I use Mod Podge. This Mod Podge is not it improved since the one we were using 20 years ago because it's dishwasher proof. So you can put it on a dish and wash it in dishwasher. Okay, we're going to use a little bit of white folk art paint, white acrylic paint to cover the coaster. I use a dollar store coaster that I got. It has some writing on it, but we're going to paint over that. A cloth to sop up some water, a little bit of water to sop up, to sand once lightly sand once I paint, a sponge paintbrush, a brush, just an inexpensive dry bristle brush, and a fairly new nail file. And I just have a couple of little containers to contain my paint and my glue. And also you need an iron and ironing board, and you need your napkins. So let's get started. We'll get our napkins. Okay, napkins are either 3-ply or 4-ply, which means they have extra pieces of paper on them. And first we've got to get those extra pieces of paper off and down to just the basic of the napkin. Now, those little crinkles or dots all around the edge of the napkin, they're pressed there to hold the napkin together. And so if we take a hot iron, we want to flatten them out so they're no longer holding the napkin together. I haven't burned a napkin yet, and I have it on steam, and I have it on the highest setting. And I iron, and especially around those edges, until I see the napkin start to separate. Now some of them are much easier than others, and I already see this one starting to pop apart right on this edge, and so I go ahead and try to get a hold of it, and I saw it pop apart. Okay, yeah, here you see that? Can you see how it's splitting? And voila, I have one piece of paper. Fold it up because I use it later to separate them when I'm giving them as gifts. So, okay, still another sheet on here because this is a 3-ply, so we'll iron again. Back to the hot. Sometimes you can take a needle into the corner and kind of pick it apart, but I like this ironing. They just seem to fall apart better. Now, Kaspari napkins are very good napkins, very strong, and they're 4-ply. So you have to keep looking until you get that fourth one, until you get the third sheet off. Okay. Let's see, don't have this guy quite yet. And there he goes, pressing down on the edge. Now here, I peel very, very gently. Don't want to tear the napkin. But I'm separating them. I didn't know this at first, so and I haven't been doing this very long, and I haven't had any sleep because I just went crazy liking to do it and wanting to do it. Okay, there's my second one off. If I didn't know it at first, and it creates a lot of bubbles, it creates a lot of wrinkles if you're not dealing with the absolute thinnest layer of the napkin. Okay, that's for ironing and separating. Now we're ready to decoupage. Well, we're not quite ready. Remember the coaster that we chose had some words on it. This one's kind of difficult because the words are in black and they're indented a little bit. So we paint over it first. took about, remember I said this just white acrylic paint that we're using, paint over it, about 3 layers to cover this black. Very, very lightly, very, very thin layers. You know how to paint, so I don't really need to demo that, but just you make sure you don't have paint streaks and lines. Let one dry, paint another. About 3 coats it took to cover that. You want a good surface. When you finish painting and it's all dry, lightly sand it. You want to get this as smooth as possible so it looks really professional. Okay, I have one that I had already painted and sanded, and we're ready to decoupage. Now there are a couple methods, and I'm just going to cover the wet method because I find it's easier to get out the wrinkles. It's almost wrinkle free. I'll cover the dry method just a minute. On the dry method, you put a layer of decoupage first on your tile, and then you lay your dry napkin on top of it, and you smooth that dry napkin in and try to get all the wrinkles out. And then 2 coats of decoupage on top of the dry napkin. The other way, the wet napkin, okay, the dry napkin goes a little faster. It's very hard to avoid wrinkles. The wet napkin, you can get the wrinkles out. You have the risk of tearing, and it goes a little slower. But I like the end product better of the wet napkin, so we're going to do that. Okay, wet napkin. I had already cut apart. Remember, we can get 4 of these from the napkin that we chose. I've cut apart, so I'm dealing with just 1. This is a little large for the square of this this tile. Now you can use actual tiles that you buy at Home Depot or Lowe's that are a little larger, but they don't come with the cork already backed on it like these dollar store ones, so whichever you prefer. Now, but they are a little larger, so you could deal with this napkin a little better. This napkin, I try to position him. I want his feet to show and the wheels to show, and get him centered, but a little bit of him hangs off over the edge. But he's still cute. Okay, wet napkin, what we do, we have some water. I have him centered. I have him face up on top of, I'm just using a sheet of plastic here because I'm dealing with water on my ironing board. So just pour some water on. Now, I don't know, did I mention the brushes we need? But you need, the dry brush works best for this. And now just spread that water all over, make sure he's saturated. And I don't think I got on quite enough to get it all over. What makes it adhere to the tile is the water. And then we decoupage over that, and the decoupage goes right through the damp napkin to glue it to the top of the coaster. I'm very lightly smoothing this out, looking for any wrinkles, and tracing the wrinkles to the edge, looking for any bubbles, because I just want a flat product on here. Now, it's pretty easy to do if you just do a light touch, and I'm not seeing any wrinkles. There's one stem here that looks like a wrinkle, but he's okay, no wrinkles. Okay, now you can sop up some of that water that you poured on there so it doesn't take so long to dry, but just gently, don't rub, just press to absorb some water, and it pushes that napkin even further down into the coaster. Okay. Now, don't let it dry. If you want to put your decoupage on immediately. If you let it dry, it'll bubble up and come back away. Remember, it's just a napkin laying on top of a piece of tile. So we're going to decoupage. Did I mention the sponge brushes that you need? You know, again, Dollar Tree sponge brushes get you a whole pack. They don't have to be perfect. And we are going to very, very lightly, not to tear the napkin, very, very lightly put a thin coat of decoupage on top of it, on top of this wet napkin. And you don't want it piling up, you don't want to see the white. Very, very gently, you know, working from the center to the outside edge usually works best. You don't want to leave decoupage lines or have too much decoupage there. And if you create any wrinkles, you can get them out with that, or you can go back to your dry brush, which you can wipe off later, and you can smooth it out. It works to smooth out the decoupage anyway. Okay. He's looking good. Don't see a single wrinkle. Now, I let him dry just a little bit. It's a little early in the process to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and risk it and show you how to do it. Now, how do I cut the edges off? There's where my sharp fingernail file comes in. A new one, as they get old, they don't work so well, and you're just going to file off the paper around the edge. This makes it adhere to the edge a little better, gives you a real clean cut. Don't be tempted to pull it, because you can tear it as you pull it. But I usually let it dry a little bit, because it's a little bit risky to take it off when it's as wet as it is right now. Okay, and just keep working it until a little harder you can hit it. Okay, I remember my mom doing this with pie crust. I was fascinated by her ability just to whip it off like that with the pie crust. Okay, almost done. And if you see any wrinkle that appeared during this process, okay, there's one still clinging. Remember, don't pull. Use your file. Okay, I think I got a pretty clean edge there. So now this one is ready to dry, unless you created any wrinkles. I see, maybe I can't even tell if it's a wrinkle or not, but I'll give them one more smooth coat over, and it's ready to dry. Now, it really only takes a couple hours, but my friend who taught me usually leaves it 24 just to be on the safe side. I'm much too anxious and I want to get it finished early. So he's done. He has got one coat of decoupage on. Now let it dry, put another coat on. So we have our 2 coats of decoupage, and then I have a couple here. After your second coat is dry, just to give it a little bit of extra protection, use some acrylic spray. It doesn't matter what kind. Just give it a light coat of spray. It gives it extra protection and a nice sheen. If you like the sheen, I missed a little bit in the corner. You're getting my hand there. Okay, and so now that one's finished and all ready to dry. See how simple that was? Okay, stay tuned for the next one on doing it on a plate.